Today, I have a bit of sad news, and it involves the piano that you just saw in that video clip. That piano was a 1936 Steinway D, and it was virtually completely unrestored. I was looking at it, and it appears that the hammers may have been replaced about 40 years ago, but everything else on that piano was original. The soundboard was original. The strings were original. The action was original. The key tops were original, so you know what that means. And the finish of the piano was also original. Everything in the piano was original, and yes, it played like that. That is the sound and the sign of a super high quality piano. Even if it's old and unrestored, if it can still play and sound that good, that is a hell of a piano. So I have some bad news for you, as I said in the beginning of the video, and that would be that the piano has been sold. Now that in itself isn't really necessarily bad news, and in fact when I heard that the person who bought it was a professional musician, I was actually pretty excited, because you'd think that a professional musician would know what to look for in a piano and would know what made a great piano, and that's why they bought the piano. However, that apparently wasn't the case, or they were convinced out of their thoughts by a rebuilder because they decided to have the piano rebuilt. And the biggest problem here is that those rebuilders, who I have met, they're in Northern California, they decided to rip out the soundboard of that piano. Just cut it out with a Sawzall. I know they've done that before. That's what they do with this one. Just cut out the beautiful, original, perfect soundboard of that piano and replace it with something of their own design. Now, the problem with that is that, as I just said a second ago, the soundboard on that piano was perfect. It had no issues on it, no cracks, no holes. It had perfect crown. It was made with beautiful old growth wood of some sort, and it was absolutely perfect. It was what you look for in a soundboard on a piano. And yet they just wanted to tear it out because that's what they do. That's what they do with pianos. These particular rebuilders, like I said, I've met them, I've seen what they do. They'll take any piano that comes into their shop, regardless of how it plays. If it plays terribly or if it plays beautifully, what they're going to do is cut out the soundboard, replace it with something of their own design, then do the normal upgrades to a piano, new strings, new hammers, new action, whatchamacallit, and send it out without listening to the piano first. The thing about a great rebuilder, the thing that marks a great rebuilder, is someone who will listen to a piano that comes into their shop and find out what its weaknesses are, what its strengths are, and how to fix its weaknesses and to emphasize its strengths. And that's not what these rebuilders do. As I said, they do the exact same cookie cutter approach on all of their pianos, including this phenomenal piano. Now the reason I'm so upset about that is because the soundboard is the heart and soul of a piano. It's not the rim. It's not even the action. The action is crucial to it, but the real thing that really makes a piano sound good is the soundboard. If you change the soundboard, if you do anything to the soundboard, it can alter the sound of the piano. So when this piano comes out of the shop with a brand new soundboard in it, it's going to sound completely different, and it's not going to be what it was anymore. So basically what happened here is we've lost an important part of American heritage, of American history. There aren't very many of these pianos out there, and there aren't really being made anymore. Yes, Steinway is still around. Yes, they still make the Model D, but they aren't the same as this particular piano. This was an incredible piano, and a good Steinway is a great piano even today, but nothing I have found really compares with the sound of that D from New York from 1936. That was a phenomenal piano. It was an incredible piano back in the day, and the fact that it still was an incredible piano, even with the original components, really shows how incredible of a piano that once was. So that's why I wanted to make this video, to tell you that that piano, perhaps as of making this video, might be no more. It might not still have the original soul that it once did. What more is there to say? I guess perhaps if the buyer of this video is watching and the soundboard of that piano has not been taken out, do not have it taken out. Tell those rebuilders to not take the soundboard out of the piano, and if you can, don't have them rebuild it at all. Find someone else to do it. The only things that piano really needed is perhaps a new action if you really wanted it, new hammers, and new strings. And also, if you wanted to, you could also refinish the piano, but that also opens up a whole can of worms that I wanted to get into right now. Steinway at the moment is being very strange and honestly acting pretty crazy. They've recently entered in some new, come up with some new rules, and what this basically means is that any Steinway that has a non-Steinway soundboard, or really any other non-Steinway components, can no longer be considered a Steinway. So what this means is if this beautiful 1936 piano goes into the rebuilder's shop and they put their own soundboard of their own design into the piano, first of all, Steinway doesn't sell soundboards, and they never will. They never did and never will most likely sell soundboards. So any Steinway with a replaced soundboard, technically, by Steinway's new rules, isn't a Steinway anymore. So what this basically means is the rebuilders now have a bootleg Steinway. And you, the owner, if you're watching, if that soundboard has been replaced, you now have a bootleg Steinway that by Steinway's new rules can no longer be considered a Steinway. So what this means is also that the logo that will be put on the piano if it is refinished is also going to be fake, and it's not going to be legally considered a Steinway. This means that technically Steinway & Sons, the corporation, can actually come after these rebuilders and sue them, and maybe, I'm not really sure, but perhaps the owner could also be in trouble, but I don't know that. That is really just a question, a hypothetical statement. But the truth is that that piano, when that soundboard gets replaced and that logo gets changed on the fallboard, and also the side of the piano if it had one, I don't remember, it will no longer be a legit Steinway. It'll be fake. It won't be a real Steinway according to Steinway's rules. So that is the other thing about that piano, and that is another reason why the soundboard shouldn't be replaced. Now, do I agree with Steinway's rules? No, they're being really strange, really weird, and it's all about them trying to sell the company. I'll have a whole nother video coming out in the future about that. But those are the two reasons why that piano should not have had the soundboard replaced. And again, if the owner of this video is watching and they haven't left already, do not replace that soundboard. I beg of you. That piano doesn't need a new soundboard. The soundboard in it is perfect. Doesn't matter what the rebuilders told you. They probably told you it was trash. It's not trash. It is a phenomenal, amazing piano. The only things it really needed were strings and hammers at the bare minimum. Maybe new action if you wanted to, but that would probably mean having new keys, and we all love the feel of natural key tops. They're phenomenal, so I probably wouldn't have even changed the action. I probably just would have had it regulated. So that is the update, that is the news of that 1936 Steinway. I wanted to do this because that video, the original video for it, did pretty well on my channel. It's one of my most viewed videos, and so I assume that that piano may have had a little bit of a following. I know there were a lot of people in the comment section of the original video who said that the piano shouldn't have even been touched at all. Leave the original strings, leave the original everything, preserve it the way it was. As a pianist, I personally would like to see new strings and hammers put on an instrument like that, but that is the bare minimum because that isn't really changing. Well, it is changing what the piano was, but it's changing it for the better. It's truly giving it an improvement. Replacing the soundboard on a piano like that that had a beautiful soundboard, a perfect one to begin with, is practically blasphemy. Now, I'm not saying that a piano should never have the soundboard replaced ever, because there are cases where soundboards will need to be replaced. Say a piano was in a flood and the soundboard was completely destroyed, or you dredged it up from the ocean. I don't know, I'm putting out ridiculous scenarios here. But there are scenarios where a soundboard on a piano would need to be completely replaced. But there's also ways to repair a broken soundboard. I met a wonderful rebuilder in Arkansas, in Little Rock, and what he does is he takes aged pieces of soundboard material, and when he has a soundboard that has a crack in it, he will put aged soundboard material of the same era of the piano into the soundboard to give it back that crown. That piece of wood that he inserted will have a similar sonic characteristic. It will kind of age the same way as the rest of the wood in that piano does, and all of his pianos in his store had incredible sustain. So it is possible to repair a busted soundboard, and I'm not saying that no piano should ever have its soundboard replaced, because there are scenarios where that does have to happen, but that particular 1936 Steinway was not one of those instances. It doesn't need a new soundboard. And that, I think, is about all I had to say. Just wanted to give a bit of a public service announcement and an update to that piano. It was one of my favorites that I've actually ever run across, and for those of you who probably don't know, which probably would be all of my followers on my channel, because I never told anybody this, I was actually considering about buying that piano. At the time, I actually already had the piano that I'm sitting at right here, my 1995 Steinway, but I was thinking about perhaps picking that one up if I could get a good enough deal on it as a secondary piano, a practice piano. Perhaps even a second recording piano. You could do duets. It would be really awesome. But I never did that, and if any of you guys are really upset that the piano is being replaced, well, I guess the small part of that could be put on me because the piano wasn't purchased. Like I said, I would have put new strings and new hammers on it, and that's about it. I probably wouldn't have even refinished it because it's just an aesthetic. It really doesn't affect the playing of the piano. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video as much as you can. Hopefully you appreciated me giving a bit of an update of that piano. I really hope that this video goes out soon enough before that soundboard gets replaced. Hopefully my video can make a difference, but it's probably too late. I found out about this about 2 months ago, but I was on the road then, didn't have time to make a nice arranged video like this one, so I'm doing it now. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully you found it informative. If you have any thoughts about this, put them in the comments of this video, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.